Hi, good evening. It is Amicus Briefs for Public Poetry, and I'm Dom Zuccone. With us tonight is Elina Petrova. Elina has two books in English, uh, Aching Miracle and Desert Candle. She originally wrote in Russian. Um, Elina, how are you this evening?
Good evening, Dom. Thank you for inviting me. I'm doing well.
Excellent. What are you working on now?
After my 2019 book, Desert Candles, you mentioned, I started a manuscript that has been writing itself through the past years of pandemic, insanely hot summers, war in my homeland. Now it's both countries where my family lives, so you approximately see the subjects of it. The sequence of
Yeah,
this.
you're from the Ukraine, for people who don't know. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, from East Ukraine, and that's why the sequence of this now pretty hefty draft, it just works like my mind, constantly bouncing between Texas and Ukraine. And there are poems which are triggered by Houston, its nature, art, sensibility of private life. But there are a lot of memoir poems, poems related to my family in Ukraine and Israel. Federica Fellini said that all artists are autobiographical. Like the pearl is the oyster's autobiography. And even if this it's quite a provocative, playful statement, but it's partially true. And I'm not content with my current pearls that don't reflect enough of what's happening now in Ukraine. And there is another, like the other side to it. A poem is not exactly a novel. It's not born from a wish to write on a chosen topic. As I see by now, manuscript could have an epigraph. Joseph Fazana's line about poetry in a world at war. All you have to do today is listen. Wars are made by those who hear no birds. My current project is even called, at least for right now, A Bird from Ukraine.
Well, that's a lot of locations and dislocations. Uh, let's do the questions. Speaking of locations, where's your favorite place to read a poem?
In Houston, during these triple-digit summers, I usually read just like others in my bedroom. But any other season, I prefer to read and write under the open sky, in the privacy of our backyard, and often in the company of various birds. You know, cardinals are visiting, munias are bathing still with grain on beaks. My backyard packs Romana. But long time ago, as a teenager, in my, Soviet nebula, I used to remember my favorite poems by heart and mumble them to myself while returning home from a bus stop. I would walk in twilight along snow drifts of my street, and snow was falling slowly, and as if it was passing and thawing through empty me. I'd stop at the white maple and whisper a poem by Alexander Blok or Marina Tsvetaeva. On a drizzle of November, I'd stand for a while without umbrella, just to absorb scents and colors of leaf fall and recall lines by my favorite Arseny Tarkovsky or Boris Pasternak. Such moments felt like the healing hand on my forehead, the gentle, understanding touch lacking in daily life. The past years, thanks to my supportive husband, I can take almost any day off from our family business paperwork and for a walk in Herman Park, which is a very good place for reading.
What was the first poem you remember getting?
Well, in the elementary school, I loved to draw. For my birthday on third grade, my friend gave me the Tiro calendar with Renaissance portraits. So I could divide them to like a chessboard to exercise in imitating images square by square. And the page's other side happened to contain historic notes with quotes from old European poems translated to Russian. That's how I discovered the fifth sonnet by Shakespeare, the one about aging with good-hearted nature. I still remember it, but flowers is still, though they with winter meet leaves, but their substance still leaves sweet. Also, I was moved by that melancholic beauty of the sonnet. I took a metaphor about the scent of a rose in such a naive way that I even cried a little over that liquid prisoner penned in walls of glass, not fully getting what it was about, but somehow getting it. And in the school, there were absolutely different poems. I dreaded memorizing those, especially rhymed upbeat Soviet verses. Only on 9th, 10th grade, real poetry and music somehow entered and shook my limited world. That was the year I started reading Alexander Blok, to whose collected poems I frequently returned late in engineering school, where literature and languages weren't taught at all. That was the time of getting it.
Well, if you could ask questions of any past writer or artist, who would that be? What questions would you ask them? Just a couple.
This year, I would probably talk to Dostoevsky, whose books I devoured in my students' days. My rhetorical question would be about transformative power of culture. Why a nation that claims to be so well-read, spiritual, humane, could be morbidly cruel? And why being reasonably read and even finely tuned to the poetic language does not necessarily change the hearts, making them less indifferent to the suffering of fellow humans. And if to take it on a lighter side, I'd rather chat with Chagall and Dali about how to preserve the playful, enthusiastic, eccentric side of artist psyche during the times of major societal divides. How to dare to be joyous, as Henry Miller was saying, it's to be a madman in a world of sad ghosts.
Going from the past to the present, what do you think that contemporary writing gets right, and what do you think it misses?
There is nothing new under the sun, and real literature will stay in history as classics, like Ovid, like anybody, Homer. So some will serve the societal needs of this troubled decade, and countless poems generated by current fashions or workshop prompts may perish in the surf of a few years. But however, if there might be no obvious geniuses of the Renaissance scale, there is no lack of talents in this world as ever. What may contemporary art miss? I don't know whether it's a miss or just a normal rotten tomato style discrepancy, critics versus audience. But it has been for a while. The art pushed at auctions by art dealers is just one side of it. But there is also the market of overconceptualized art that excludes the general public from its discourse. A banana duct taped to the wall can be sold for 150,000, like it happened in Miami. No emperor without closed jokes are passed even when someone sells empty air. These days, it's not a hyperbole. Recently, Italian artist auctioned off for, I don't remember, not a big amount, like 19 grand, his artwork, an invisible sculpture, which is immaterial, made literally of nothing, air and spirit, so to speak. The tape out empty space, 5 to 5 feet, presented with suggestion that the audience has to activate their imagination. And I don't know if it's art or we might consider launch of invisible books with silent reading for public poetry.
It could be. Yeah, I mean, as long as we're talking about empty art, if you had to get rid of all of the books in your library except one could fit in a cardboard box, what's going to be in your cardboard box?
Once immigrating from Ukraine to Houston, I already did this. Instead of something tangible, I locked a hefty extra suitcase packed with books by Nabokov, Chekhov, and even Jorge Luis Borges and Hermann Hesse in Russian translations. And also Russian translations of Albert Camus and Diogenes Laertius. I was afraid that for several years, such complex books would be not even enjoyable to me in a foreign language. So when I first landed in Texas, I pushed forward not only regular bags, but this extra suitcase with books that made me even break a heel on my Ukrainian boot, right at the Homeland Security. But the idea of having only one box of books is quite provocative for indecisive neurotics like writers. Goodbye to Horace Wisbrowski, but should I divest T.S. Eliot for Carl Phillips or Natalie Diaz or Philip Ross for Zadie Smith? I'd take a risk and pack the box with a few new novels from different countries. I could probably use suggestions from Lit Hub, New Yorker, London Review of Books. It would be a compressed emotional experience from the tour around the world that I don't know well, and one which I know better. I mean, some Ukrainian anthology with Sergei Zhadan, Andrei Kurkov, Iya Kiva. Otherwise, I still need to keep my Borges and short stories by Nabokov, Chekhov, also collected poems by your fellow Ahayan, James Wright, and for sure nonfiction. I would take the
You have to be able to
newest
lift up
books
the
by.
box.
Yeah, that's not a big box, by the way. I'm just thinking, what are my priority? I would take David Eagleman and Don Lincoln. Eagleman is well known for his riveted writing on neuroscience subjects, but Don Lincoln is a senior scientist in Fermilab. He writes unique books about latest discoveries in the world of particle physics, for informed, but actually a lay audience like us. His new book, Einstein Unfinished Dream, is my current adventure. I really enjoy it.
Okay. Let's ask another question. What do you think makes something art? What makes something art or not art?
Recently, we exchanged with you expressionist paintings by monkeys. It's also art. But in a higher sense of this word, I would say that art is that Michelangelo angel in the marble, which he carved until set him free. Of course, not all art is destined even to aspire to Michelangelo standards. Primitive art is also art, but in any form, it's a striving for harmony. Now, art was born from the most ancient human quest for harmony in this quite rough world. All artistic impulse was familiar even to Neanderthal, who 60,000 years ago carved such flute of a bear cyborg that you can still play motherland. The spark was familiar to the Cayman in Lascaux, France, They painted running animals not for soliciting from gods a successful hunt, but that was already a joy of reflection and creation. Craft and skill, those are ingredients for everything, but the other crucial side of creativity is that art should come from the heart. Only that what touches the artist, then moves us, washes the dust of daily life of our souls. The same with poetry. Carl Phillips said that he feels like writing only about so-called small things, as love, death, just like Emily Dickinson did. What makes something art? Perhaps something what makes you feel beauty and pain of this world in more dimensional and humane ways.
Yeah. If you could read any poem to your father, what poem would that be, and would you read that for us now?
My father used to joke that he was so much of an engineer to understand my poems, obscure even in our mother tongue, that now in a foreign language, he's got even scarcer chances. But when I published my first book in Russian in Donetsk, he came to support me reading from the stage of that big cultural center, receiving an award. And he supported from his heart, even if he liked absolutely different kind of poetry, which is rhymed, melodic, like his nostalgic Sergei Yesenin. I would read Yesenin for him. I'm ashamed that I never written a truly good poem about my father. I mean, I wrote a series of them, but that's not what I'd like to read to him in his 84. 10 years ago, when the first war in Ukraine started, in my hometown area, my father had to leave our beautiful 3 million people city for a godforsaken village near Kiev. However, Ukraine is his native land where he feels at home, where he still tries to contribute. That's important to him, even in this age. He used to be an energy engineer, and he elevated work conditions of coal miners. Then he built a factory during recession and provided work to retired coal miners. And now, as a refugee villager, he spends a few months with us here in Houston and returns to his family, eager to do something for his fellow Ukrainians, be it anything, just heating system advice, irrigation matters, even excess of his humble harvest from his garden, something just to share with neighbors. And what I was thinking, that's the way how his father Moses taught him indirectly through his own example. And I may read a short narrative poem that reflects on this family trait through quite a goofy episode from my father's childhood. It's called Aryqi. In Kazakh language, it's irrigation ditches. Shambul, Kazakhstan, 1943. Moses, my red-headed father, in his round glasses and broad-cloth helmet, saved since his years in the Red Cavalry, stood on the step of a gas truck and spread his military trench coat into the space of the missing windshield to protect his wife and child against the slapping rain. In the similar way, my dad often shielded my mother, me, and others whenever things got broken. The semi-blind commander of the engineering echelon, Moses wasn't sent to Stalingrad, where my other grandfather fought, survived, and painted factories with portraits of Stalin, whom he hated. It's not about them, though, only about my 4-year-old evacuee father and irrigation ditches called Aryqi in Kazakh language. collected from the rich mountain water, slowly forked to gardens. The boy, devising a way to speed the flow to his Aryqi, blocked a collector with dirt. After water reached his yard, neighbors from lower areas appeared shouting as the boy learned that family was much broader than what he thought. Many thirsty and hungry whom thereafter the son of Moses never failed.
So lovely. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Dom.
Thank you for all your writing. Thank you for everything you've done in Houston. You're everywhere, it seems. A great addition to our city. Thank you again, and thank you for being with us here at Public Poetry.
And my heartfelt thanks, Dom, for having me in your program.
Oh, what a pleasure. Okay, good night.
Good night.